So there are a few reasons why I am using High Lift for this instead of bleach. For one, it's because Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Laura, I'm a hairstylist, and today I'm gonna show you how to do the Old Money Blonde color trend. Now, my starting canvas is actually the color that I had previously did in a video a couple months ago. I'll link it below. I titled it How to Do a Winter Blonde. And I have just let this color grow out completely from that video. It has been, I want to say, at least 3 months. And I'm really happy with how this grew out. What we're going to do today is going to be somewhat similar, but a little bit different because it's not quite as ashy of the color that we did last time. Now, there are a number of different ways that you can get the Old Money Blonde look. Some of it is even just wearing your natural color if you're a natural dirty blonde, but you can also get there by deepening and softening the blonde that you currently have. So as you can see with my starting canvas, I have quite a bit of my natural regrowth that has grown out, as well as some old residual blonde that's left over from quite a while ago. And there's a number of ways that you can get to the Old Money Blonde look from what I have currently. A lot of people may opt to add a few highlights in here to blend up this line right here, but let me explain why I'm not going to do that for myself. When I do my color, I always like to think into the future ahead. What are the effects in the future going to be of what I do to my hair today? So for me, I color my hair myself. It's just easier. I know exactly what I want and I know how to do it, but it can be a little bit harder, especially when it comes to highlighting my hair. So this color is a grown out all over blonde. As you saw in the last video I made, I did bring the front up a little bit to create kind of a Scandi hairline, but all of this was just solid blonde. There aren't any highlights throughout the rest of it. The reason I don't like to add highlights to my own hair to soften this line is because I know that I am going to want to go all over blonde again in the future, and adding highlights is going to make that a lot harder for me to do myself. Even if I was doing another client, it would make it a lot more tedious of a job. So that means when I want to bring this blonde up, if I had highlights in here, I would have to weave and pick out where every single highlight is to properly color the hair. So keeping it kind of an all over look is going to make it easier on me in the future when I go to bring the blonde back up. So instead of adding highlights to blend this line, what I'm going to do instead is pull a color melt down, which is still going to soften this line completely, and it'll just fade seamlessly from my natural color into this light blonde. I have a few grays up here anyways, and as a blonde, I actually love getting more gray hairs because it does soften the line. It's almost like having natural highlights in there. So my grays will soften it enough, and then I'll put a color melt over this and it'll all blend out seamlessly. I'm doing basically the same technique, but the colors that I'm using are going to be a little bit warmer today than they were in the winter blonde color that I did. So let's get mixed. So the formula I'm doing today is equal parts 1211, 1207, and 1296 in Wella. This is a high lift color, and this will only get to a nice blonde color if you are a level 6 or higher. Okay, so this is 1211. Okay, so we got 3 grams of that. So we'll do 3 grams of each. Perfect. 9 grams of color. And since it's 2 parts developer, that means we're going to do 18 grams of developer, and we are using double 40 volume developer. Perfect. 18 grams. Okay, so the next color we're going to mix is going to be our darkest color, and we are going to use Pravana. We're going to use Pearl and Beige Express Tones. These are demi-permanent colors. They will not affect the natural color of my hair, and they deposit only. These Pravana colors are 1 to 1.5 developer, not double. So we're gonna do equal parts of these, and I'm gonna do, let's do 20 grams of each, just to be sure we have enough. And if you'll notice, I am using a darker bowl. The first bowl was the lightest color, so it's gonna be in the lightest bowl. This is the darkest color, so it's gonna be in the darkest bowl. And then the next color I'm gonna mix is going to be in actually like a gray bowl. I do this so I don't ever get mixed up and there's zero confusion when I'm applying the color. Okay, so we have 40 grams of color mixed. Now we're going to use Pravana Zero Lift Developer. Zero Lift is actually 6 volume developer, but they say zero lift just because it doesn't create any lift to it. So since we did 40 grams, that means we're gonna do 60 grams of developer. So that's 1 to 1.5. Okay, so for our third and final color, I am going to mix Pravana again, Pearl, Platinum Sand, and Platinum Lilac. Now, technically, Pravana does not suggest mixing the platinum toners with their regular express toners, but I'm a little bit of a rule breaker, and this has always worked really well for me, so this is what I am doing. Since I used Pearl in the other formula, this will really help blend the two colors together. And the platinum toners are a little bit lighter than the regular toners. We're gonna do 10 grams of each. The regular express toners deposit to a level 7 when they're not diluted. And the platinum toners are more like a level 10. So the fact that we're adding the platinum toners in with the pearl toner is gonna give it more of a sheer, lighter look. And we're gonna do equal parts of all of these. And so the reason I chose the colors that I chose is so that we get a really nice, pleasant blonde. I don't want it to be too cool and I don't want it to be brassy. So the pearl and the lilac and even the platinum sand, these colors all have warmth to them. The platinum lilac is going to help remove too much brassiness without making it appear too cool. Okay, and for the developer, since we did 30 grams, that means we're gonna do 45 grams of developer. So 30 grams would be equal parts, and to add the extra half means to go to 45. So the first color we're gonna put on is going to be the lightest color, which is the Wella High Lift. And this I'm gonna do around my face. If you watched my last video, then you saw that I did basically what we call a Scandi hairline. I'm gonna do it a little bit thicker than I did last time, but I'm still gonna be using the same technique. So there are a few reasons why I am using High Lift for this instead of bleach. For one, it's because I am actually allergic to bleach. I would not be able to paint bleach right onto my scalp like this. But the second reason is because High Lift color tones as it lightens. So that means I don't need to go back and put a separate toner on these pieces that we're brightening right now. High lift color also doesn't swell as it oxidizes like bleach does. So that'll help me avoid having bleed marks into the other color, the dark color behind it, because it's not swelling. Bleach tends to swell as it oxidizes, and that means that you can have bleed marks because it swells over onto that other section, whereas high lift color doesn't really do that. Now, if your hair color is darker than mine, high lift probably won't work for you. It will turn your hair orange. High lift typically will only lift 4 levels. So if your natural color is darker than mine is, I would not recommend attempting this. Now, something that I have found with high lift is when you pull the color down over the previous time you did high lift, it bumps that previous session up just a little bit to make it blend in with your bright blonde ends. Okay, so I'm gonna pop a foil over this just because I wanna keep the heat in a little bit. That will help it process to a nice bright blonde. It will also keep it separated from the rest of the color. So I want to process this color for a total of an hour and a half. This is going to allow it the full amount of time to process so that I don't have a lot of brassiness left over. Okay, so the second color I'm going to do is the beige and the pearl. Now beige can appear a little bit cool, and it's actually one of the colors that I used in the last video, but instead of mixing it with violet, this time I mixed it with pearl. Pearl is going to add a little bit more warmth to the color. Now, I'm not super concerned about getting this all on my new growth up here. If we get it on it, that's fine. But the main concern is covering where this line is and blending it down. As I mentioned, this color deposits to a level 7. My natural color is a level 6, so it's not really going to affect it much. Now, these semi-permanent colors process in as little as 5 minutes. The longer you leave it on, typically the darker they process, but they don't really get a whole lot darker after 15 or 20 minutes. We're actually going to leave these on for quite a bit longer just because we want to let the high lift color process longer, and I'm not concerned about these going too dark. Now, before I get any haters about me not wearing gloves, I do wear gloves and I will put them on in a minute, but for some things I like to not have gloves on actually because I can be way more precise in what I'm doing. Gloves can kind of make things a little more difficult. And this is just a demi-permanent hair color, so there's no ammonia in this. It's really not going to affect my hands at all. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to our final color. So this is the Pearl, the Platinum Lilac, and the Platinum Sand. And because I'm pulling this all the way through the hair, I am gonna put gloves on because it'll help it glide down a little bit better. When I'm doing a larger application, like this last color is going on the biggest section of hair, I like to use a big brush like this. It saves you so much time. Also, if you guys notice that I'm not wearing a smock or a cape in it at all, I'm not worried about the color staining my clothes because I'm wearing a black shirt and this is demi-permanent color, so it's not gonna do anything to this black shirt that I'm wearing if it gets on it. Now, if I were using bleach, that would be a very different story. I don't know if you can see, but it is definitely already changing the color and I'm really excited for that. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave the rest of this out in open air to process and we're gonna process it for the rest of that hour and a half. So here we have the final result and I am ecstatic. I absolutely love how it came out. It married this just enough and it's not gonna be too dark that it will make it difficult for me to lighten in the future. This money piece blends in with my hairline so naturally and it really gives that seamless look with still giving me brightness and that pop around my face. Perfect.